everybody. Steve Hootman at the Rhododendron Species Botanical Garden. It is March 8th, and we are entering prime blooming season here in the garden. So a lot of things are coming out pretty much on a daily basis, such as this beautiful big leaf species here from the Himalayas. This is a species called Rhododendron grande, the grand rhododendron, and it is quite spectacular. This had been in a pot until just last year, so the leaves, so it was a bit stressed. So the leaves aren't as large as they will be once it gets a good root system established. But it did, that stress of being moved and taken out of the pot did cause it to form quite a few flower buds this year. So we lucked out there, and we get to see it bloom. And grande is, after Protistum and Magnificum, the earliest of the big leaves to flower every year. So generally late January, February. These are a little late this year, but besides looking at this beautiful thing in flower, today we are going to cross-pollinate this plant by hand with another clone of the same species. So these are two different collections of grande, which occurs from eastern Nepal all the way through Sikkim into Bhutan and even into Arunachal Pradesh, which is going toward China and Burma. So it's a widespread species. It tends to be the first one you find, the first big leaf that you find as you climb in elevation. So for instance, in Sikkim, you'll hit grande around 6, 7, 8,000 feet, and then above that is Falconeri, and then above Falconeri is Hodgsonii. So in our climate here in the Pac Northwest, it is not bone hardy, and I would imagine there will come a winter eventually which will kill these grande plants. So we do keep backups under cover for the winter every year here at the Species Botanical Garden. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and illustrate the process of creating pure species seed. So these inflorescences are already too open. So there's the possibility of contamination by bees or other insects or birds, what have you. So you need to find flower buds that have not opened yet, which is right here. We have a perfect one. So these are mature enough that the stigma should be receptive, but again, they have not opened. And so we're going to prep this, and then we'll go get the pollen to put on this plant and take care of that. But you can see it's quite a beautiful thing with all the pink and the purple blotch at the base, and then they fade to more of a white, and then the purple blotch really shows up. But it does vary a bit. You can have creamy yellows and even almost pink in this species grande. So let's take care of business here. And so when I come to harvest this next, probably November or December, you only want the capsules, if you're successful, hopefully we're successful, that you actually hand pollinated, and not the ones that the bees did, which could be contaminated with another species. Because the big leaves, like most rhododendrons, will cross with each other, and there's a Maccabianum right over there in full bloom. So we don't want Maccabianum cross grande, we want grande cross grande. So we're going to take the possibly bee pollinated flowers off so that we don't have to deal with those next fall when we collect the fruit. And we will leave only, so you want a nice sharp razor blade, is a pretty good tool. And we will eliminate all of these. And I know you're saying, oh my God, he's destroying that beautiful flower, but it has to be done. So we have, this one's a little too open for my taste. I doubt if anybody was in there, but we want to be really careful. So that still gives us 4 flowers, which allows us the opportunity to have pure seed. Now what we're going to do is very carefully cut off each of these corollas, or the flower petals, because that is a bee or a pollinator attractant, and we don't want bees or anybody visiting these once we've finalized the pollination. But basically this is what you do, and other people might have their own methods, but this is how I do it here at the garden, and we've had pretty good luck with that. And you have to be careful because obviously you don't want to go too deep and cut the ovary or the sexual parts off, because that's where you get your seed. So we'll take pollen from another clone, as I mentioned, and we'll set this down for a minute. And we are going to take those corollas off. And you want to be really careful because you don't want your own pollen. You don't want to self the plant. So get rid of all those goodies so that we just have a nice stigma on this nice style sticking out here. Whoops, buggered that one up. Not too bad. And again, because we're doing species on species, I'm not too worried if there's a little bit of self contamination, because it's still going to be grande, so you just don't get as much fertile seed typically. Okay, so that is ready to go. Now you simply get your pollen, which one of the reasons I chose a big leaf or like this grande is because they have masses of pollen and it's super easy. So we're going to shift over to this other clone, which is probably our hardiest clone. Not as colorful, but very similar. But again, they're two different clones, so they should cross quite well. And I'm going to take some flowers. Ideally, you would take a flower that hasn't been opened, because there could be cross-pollen contamination. It's not a really big deal. I can tell this really hasn't been messed with. So we're just going to take a couple of these for their pollen. Take some that aren't as open maybe. And we can come back and get more as needed. So here's where you play B. You take that corolla off. Take the style out so you have access to all that pollen, and see that pollen's just dripping out of there. These are so easy. And you just, sometimes you might need to wet. Some people put a little honey even, but these look pretty receptive. I don't think it'll be an issue. And then we're just going to smother the end of this with masses of pollen. And just, if you have enough, just wrap it. You see, if you can get close enough, you're just wrapping masses of pollen on there. And if this is successful, which there's no reason it shouldn't be, we should have big fat pods full of seeds next autumn, you know, with a couple hundred seeds in each pod. So these 4 or 5 should be plenty. I'm gonna have to go get some more. Oh, yeah, there's still some good. Yeah, so that's all she wrote right there. Just get all, see that these are super easy. Some of the little alpines and Laponica things require quite a bit more effort and a lot more patience than I typically have, but okay. These guys, yeah, see, these will be nice big fat juicy pods in November. And then we'll grow those on for about 4 years, and they will be in our distribution catalog for those of you who want to grow a grande. These get up to 60, 80 feet tall in the wild. It's quite a large tree, actually. And there you go. Now I'll make a label, which will say X66454, which I think is that number of the other clone. And then I'll know it's this one crossed, which is the female or the mother plant, with the pollen from that plant. And so I'll make that label and hang that on here. And we will put a flag on this later so that it doesn't get deadheaded, because that would waste all of this effort. And then, like I said, with any luck, we will have 5 big, juicy, seed-filled pods next November. So that is hand pollination or cross-pollination, whatever you want to call it. And that's what we do as much as possible here in the garden. It's time-intensive, et cetera, so we don't do as much as we would like. But on some of the important things, or things that are very difficult to propagate asexually, i.e. by cuttings or grafts, sometimes the only way to produce plants to distribute is to grow them from seed. And with rhododendrons, of course, they're very promiscuous. You can't just go collect random seed pods. You're not going to get the pure species necessarily. So if we do this, a controlled cross, then we know we're getting grande seeds. So when we grow those plants on, we know we're getting grande, because you're not going to take a cutting off of this. It would ruin the plant. and they're very difficult to root, and there's no way, if I took every cutting off of here, that's a dozen plants, whereas this could give me, 100 plants a year for 10 years, this one cross. Anyway, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you out in the garden. Like I said, the spring blooming season is just kicking into gear right now, so a lot of beautiful things coming out right now, and we'll see you in the garden. Thank you.